Welcome to the Way of Mastery. Welcome to the Way of Mastery. Take a breath, take a breath. Welcome to the Way of Mastery. Welcome to the Way of Mastery on Facebook Live. Welcome to the Way of Mastery on Facebook Live. I'm Earl Purdy. Welcome to Way of Mastery. I am Earl Purdy here on Facebook Live. And that ain't no jive. We are going to get down deep. This is going to be a deep class tonight. And I am excited to be your messenger. I am a messenger. A minister is a messenger. I don't know what people think minister means, but it actually means messenger. You're here to give a message. I'm here to give a message and not to be judged. We're going to do a very powerful section on page 330 in the Way of Mastery. 330, the doorway to greater God consciousness. We're going to do the doorway to greater God consciousness. I'm excited. I'm so excited to do with you the doorway to greater God consciousness. That's what we're going to do. The doorway to greater God consciousness. That's what we're going to cover on page 330 in the Way of Knowing, lesson 28, the Way of Knowing, lesson 28, the doorway to greater God consciousness. Lesson 28 in the Way of Knowing, in the section called the doorway to greater God consciousness. Good, mighty companions, we are here, and I'm so excited to cover the doorway of greater God consciousness. We're going to go into, do you know that we are going to go into greater God consciousness, greater love consciousness? We are being told that it's time for us to go into greater love consciousness. And greater love consciousness is greater freedom consciousness. I'm Earl Purdy. I've been sharing metaphysical truth and spiritual truths and teaching it for almost 40 years. And the Course in Miracles teaches that the purpose of a relationship is to save time. So that's what I'm here for. Hopefully to save me time and hopefully to save you time. Please take a moment to share this video on your timeline by right there in the comments. We're going to talk about the doorway to greater God consciousness. So I would want to invite you right now, because maybe you have been very busy before you actually got ready to watch this live, because doing this live is a very powerful experience. Because when we do it live, that means we're all, wherever we are all in this moment joined. Because if we're going to connect and we're going to join, you can only do it now. It's right now that all of us are focused in. It's right now that all of us are joined on this purpose of doing the Way of Mastery. So we can really be aware of each other right now. Now, I'm a messenger. My goal is for us to hear this. And so I'm going to go through the paragraph, and I like to use repetition so that we can hear what it's saying. Our goal is to hear it. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to welcome it. Some of it you're going to find hard to believe. Some of it you're going to find quite startling. You're not being asked to analyze it to death at all. It's using the ideas that I say, using the ideas will give the ideas meaning to you and show you that the ideas are true. Using the ideas will give the ideas meaning to you and will show you that the ideas are true. The ideas are true. Repetition, remembering. That's what I'm here for. I'm the teacher of those who want to remember this and act from this, who know they want this way of thinking. So let's get started. The doorway to greater God consciousness. God is love. So that we're talking about the doorway to greater love consciousness in the way of mastery. The first paragraph says, it talks about we are beloved friends. Who are we? We are beloved friends. I want to be your beloved friend. Do you want to be my beloved friend? We are beloved friends. That doesn't mean by becoming beloved friends, all of a sudden, we got a bunch of scripts and expectations of each other. We are beloved friends. So I'm going to talk about what happens in the way of knowing. What happens when you are in the way of knowing? It says there is a certainty of knowing that it is the places in which fear, seems to be cropping up. Is there a place in your life right now that fear is cropping up? Is there a place in your life right now that fear in the form of anger or guilt or grievances is popping up? Is there any area of your life that you have fear? That area, that place where the fear seems to be cropping up, the anger, the upset, the sickness, that is the actual doorway. Fear is a doorway. Guilt is a doorway. Insecurity is a doorway. Sickness is a doorway. Attack is a doorway. Anywhere in your life that you're feeling any upset, any area in your life that you're feeling any kind of fear, that is a doorway. What is your fear a doorway to? Your fear is a doorway to greater God consciousness. Okay. The last week for me has been an opportunity to practice everything I'm teaching every day. And so there were a variety of feelings coming up, from fear to anger to frustration. I allow myself, because of the way of mastery, Yeshua says you always allow all your feelings. That being spiritual doesn't mean be in denial. So whenever my feelings come up, I don't care if it's anger, guilt, grievances, whatever it is, I allow myself to feel it. And what I just heard, and I want to ask you if you heard it too, what I just heard, and let me get you up so I can see what you all are saying. What I just heard is that any of the frustration or anger or fear that came up for me in the last week, it was a doorway. So I didn't just have a doorway. I had a revolving doorway. Do you have a revolving doorway of fear? You know what I mean? If it's not money, it's fear around relationships, or upset around relationship. If it's not upset around relationship, it's something about work or career. If it's not something about work or career that you're dealing with, then it's something about the health of the body that you may be dealing with. If it's not the health of the body that you're dealing with, it may be some spiritual issue that you're dealing with. So that's what I call the revolving doorway of fear. So that means the more things that you are upset about, the more doorway opportunities that you are having. So really that anger, that upset, that grievance and everything that you may be experiencing right now, it's really another doorway to God consciousness. It's another. Your money challenge is a doorway to God consciousness. The health, the relationship, the job, the career, the spiritual challenge is a doorway. It says it right here. In the way of knowing, there is certainty of knowing that it is the places in which fear seems to be cropping up. It's the places in which fear seems to be cropping up. And the places in which fear seems to be cropping up is the actual doorway to greater God consciousness. Now, don't forget that our goal, our motivation for doing the way of mastery is not to know everything. Our goal, our motivation for doing this is that we want peace. We want greater love consciousness. So I get tired of saying so much. So I say it again. So what? Anyway, sometimes when I listen back to my videos, I go, so. And then I realized that was a message from Spirit, S-O-W. Sow these seeds. Plant these seeds. Sow. If there's something that you feel fearful of sharing with another, there is your doorway. So what is your doorway? What is your doorway? If there's something if there's something that you are afraid to share with somebody, that's your doorway to greater love consciousness. If there's something that you are afraid to tell somebody or share with somebody, that's actually another door. That's where your doorway to greater love consciousness is. Your doorway to greater love consciousness is wherever you are feeling afraid to talk or share with somebody. Your greater love God consciousness is wherever you have any fear cropping up. Okay, so what were the 2 points that the first paragraph was trying to get us, you and I, it's just me and you know. What is the point that it's trying to make? If I'm upset about something, then I'm really at the actual door of greater consciousness of God. That my anger and that my upset means that I'm at a door where I could have greater consciousness of God, greater consciousness of love. And if there's something that you are afraid to share with somebody, there is your doorway. So I want you to take a moment to think of anybody in your life right now that you know that you're at the doorway. And what you really want to do is kick them out the door. But that's not exactly what you're supposed to be using the doorway for. So there might be somebody in your life right now that instead of seeing them as a doorway to God consciousness, there might be somebody you want to kick out the door. So tell yourself, the person that I'm angry at is a door. The situation that I'm upset about is a door. The circumstance that I'm upset about is a door. It's a doorway. It's a doorway to greater love consciousness. It's a doorway to greater God consciousness. Okay. Wherever I am upset is where I'm actually at the door, where I could actually have greater consciousness of God, where I could have greater consciousness of love. So really, those areas of my life that's frightening me, that's upsetting me, they really are areas that are doors to God. That person is a door to God. That person that's upsetting me, that person that's scaring me, whoever I'm making myself upset about, that situation, that person is a door to love, a door to God. And some of you may have a lot of doors to God right now. You may be surrounded by doors to God. But that's who everybody and everything is that makes any kind of fear crop up in you. That person, that situation is what? It's an actual door to God. It is your door to love. That's what we're supposed to remember. Don't analyze that. 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 Remember this. Remember what? Wherever you have fear cropping up in your life right now, that's you being at the very doorway to love. It means you're at the very doorway to God. Wherever you are feeling any kind of upset, in any kind of way, with anybody, if there's something that you are afraid to share, that's also another doorway to love. wherever you are afraid to share, wherever you are afraid to communicate, that's your door. Whoever you are afraid to communicate with, that is your door to greater love consciousness. All right. Kathy says, embrace that fear because it leads to greater consciousness of love. Carla says, to get out of fear and put peace and love into practice. Wherever you are in fear or upset, whoever has you upset, they are really a doorway to love. Diana says she's laughing her ass off. Don't let that door hit you. Don't let that door hit you where the good Lord split you. Bree says there are doors on all sides. Some of us got doors, not only revolving doors, we're surrounded by revolving doors. And don't forget, what is the revolving door of opportunity? It's wherever any fear or upset is happening in your life right now. If there's any fear or upset in any part of your life right now, that is a door to God consciousness. Whew. Joanne says, I sure needed to hear this about fear being a doorway to love. Notice that Joanne said, I sure needed to hear this about fear being a doorway to love. Do you know that that is the point that I'm trying to make? What we need to do, if you want to feel better, you have to hear the truth. Because looked at correctly, the truth always makes you feel better. So I've got to tell myself something different if I want to feel better. It would be, don't you think it would be much better to see the people that upset you as being opportunities, as a doorway to love and a doorway to God and a doorway to truth, than to see them as just some crazy folk that's upsetting you all the time? And some of you may be so blessed right now that you're just totally surrounded by doors to God on every side right now. Your mama might be a door to God. Your child might be a door to God. Your mate may be a door to God. If they're upsetting you, if there's any fear of separation, that's where the door is. So the first paragraph, the truth does set us free. So now we're going to get it in with repetition. Let's get it in. Take a breath and listen to me. Take a breath and listen to me. Indeed, beloved friends, in the way of knowing, there is a certainty of knowing that it is the place in which fear seems to be cropping up. It's in the places where fear seems to be cropping up. It's in the places where fear seems to be cropping up. That is the actual doorway to the greater God. Your fear is a doorway to the greater God. Your anger is a doorway to the greater love. Your anger is a doorway to love. Your guilt is a doorway to love. Your lack is a doorway to love. Your sickness is a doorway to greater God consciousness. Greater God consciousness. Let's say it. I'm ready to have greater God consciousness. I am ready to have greater God consciousness. I am ready to have greater God consciousness. You are ready to have greater God consciousness. Let's go. Take a breath. Take a breath. Let's say it together. I am ready to have greater God consciousness. I am ready to have greater God consciousness. Fear is a doorway to love. Anger is a doorway to love. Lack is a doorway to love. Upset is a doorway to love. If there is something you feel fearful of sharing with another, If there is something you are afraid to share, if there is something else, if there is something that you are afraid to share with another, if there is something that you are afraid to share with another, there is your doorway. Wherever you are afraid to communicate, that's your doorway. Wherever you are upset, there is your doorway. The truth is, like wherever anybody's afraid, there is the doorway. Phoenix says, I'm so ready for God consciousness. Yes, Yeshua, thank you. Alita says, I got a lot of doorways. I know that's right. Jacqueline says, greater God consciousness. You know, Bree says, I'm afraid to share with another. That is my doorway. Just being afraid to communicate with someone else. One of the things that I noticed when I became more devoted to the truth is that it actually was a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. What seeking God made me realize was that I did not believe in God. I think the biggest breakthrough for me was when I admitted to myself that I didn't really believe in God, because if I really believed in God, I wouldn't be afraid. If I really believed in God, I wouldn't be afraid. If you really believed in God, you would not be afraid. You would never be afraid. You would never be afraid. You would never be upset if you truly 100% believed in God. So because I grew up in a religious background, I really thought I believed in God. So what I love about the Way of Mastery and A Course in Miracles is it gets a person out of denial. But the only problem with that is that so many people only experience what they think of as happiness because they are so in denial about what's really going on within themselves. So I want you to know that there are some places in me where there are gaps in love. There are still places in me that I give myself fear, that I give myself upset. And what I've noticed is that the more I'm willing to share and admit to myself that my upset and my grievances and anything else that comes up is really a doorway to truth. It's an opportunity for me to remember the truth. It's a doorway to greater God consciousness. Then I stop judging my anger and upset so much, because why would I feel guilty about feeling anger or fear if I knew it was a doorway to greater God consciousness? If I just remember that my upset is a doorway, your upset is a doorway, you would let go of a lot of your guilt and upset with yourself because you are having what you think of as negative thoughts. Negative thoughts, or what you think of as negative thoughts, are just doorways to greater love consciousness. And if you're a person that gets upset a lot, then you're presenting yourself with doorways a lot. You're presenting yourself with a lot of opportunities. That's what I want to do. I want to remember this so that the next time I'm upset, instead of analyzing, I'll just go, right now, you know what? Woo! I just had to run in with this person that I talked to on the phone. And what I just experienced was a great opportunity for greater God consciousness. That whole conversation was about greater God consciousness, greater love consciousness. It was an opportunity for me to remember greater love consciousness. So if you have a grievance, it's just an opportunity for you to have greater God consciousness. So the next paragraph gives an instruction, 2 instructions. It says, go and share your truth. For no other reason. Just share your truth for no other reason. You don't share your, in other words, you don't share your truth to persuade. You don't share your truth to be right, but just to do the sharing so that you can get through the ring of fear. So I'm sharing with you not to persuade you. I'm not trying to persuade you about anything. Also, I don't have a need to be right. So I'm not teaching this and sharing this from a perspective of I need to be right. I'm sharing with you. I'm doing these classes. I'm putting myself out there because I want to get past my fear. I am sharing with you so that I can I can get through my fear ring. So you share not to be right. You share and communicate not because you're trying to be right. Don't share with somebody because you're trying to be right and you're trying to make them wrong. Don't share with somebody because you have a need to be right. Don't share with somebody because you're trying to persuade them. I am not trying to persuade you. I'm not trying to persuade you about anything. There was a time I might have felt like I was trying to persuade you, but I really am not trying to persuade you about anything. I am sharing with you so that I can go through and get through all of my fears of sharing. See, going through the ring of fear is going through the doorway of greater God consciousness. And that's all. If you feel your heart constantly calling you to live penniless in the streets of London, and your heart is constantly calling you and has been calling you to go live on the streets of London, whether you have any money or not, for 30 years, go and sell all you have and follow your heart. So what is the message? And I'm going to repeat the point. The point is, follow your heart. You must follow your heart. You must follow your heart. You must follow your heart. I was telling someone just today, a mighty companion, I am so over just intellectual truth. I'm so over just talking the truth, which is cool, because a truth is when you can share. So, Carla just communicated with us. So all we want to do with that is one thing. We're not going to try to instruct, fix, or all of a sudden all of our attention be focused on responding to the beautiful thing she just shared, because then it's a distraction. But if we look at what was just shared, when she shared about something that was going on with her, we just go, okay, that person just shared a doorway that they had to greater God consciousness. That's all it means. That's all it means. Whatever you've gone through, whatever it is, it was just you describing to me, whoever this is, this was a doorway to greater God consciousness. But the point that's being made in this paragraph is that if you feel yourself being called to do something, and you have been feeling that in your heart for years and years and years, then you need to do it. According to what the Way of Master is saying, go and share your truth. But you're not sharing your truth to persuade anybody of anything. Don't you know that you're not to share your truth in order to be right? You're just sharing your truth so that you can lose your fears of going through the door of greater God consciousness. If there's something that you've been feeling in your heart, like I had a very lucrative, promising career in corporate America, and I walked away from it to teach A Course in Miracles over 30 years ago, which most people had never heard of, and then those who have a lot of resistance to. But you know why I did it? I did it because I was following my heart. My heart was calling me to be a messenger, to do what I'm doing now, to be a conduit. And do you know, even though people come and go in my life constantly, God has always taken care of me, just like the Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery said that it would. Did that mean I didn't go through my fears and upsets? Of course I did. Of course I still do from time to time. I'm still being presented with doorways to greater God consciousness. And as long as you see me, I'm still learning. And that's true of anybody that you see on the physical plane. It doesn't make any difference. Don't be fooled by people being able to talk a good game when it comes to spiritual truth. If you see them, then they're still learning the same lessons you are learning. They may go to the truth faster than you do, which would get them out of that situation faster because they see it as a doorway to greater God consciousness. But don't you think for a second that there's no spiritual teacher that you admire, that if you see them on a physical plane, they are also giving themselves doorways to greater God consciousness. We're all still learning. We're all on the same level. We are on the learning level. So we're all on the same level. Like right now, my throat is especially scratchy, right? So what is that? That's a defense against the truth. That's a doorway to greater God consciousness. So right now in my throat, I'm feeling a doorway to greater love awareness. I'm feeling and I'm at a doorway of greater health awareness, greater health consciousness. I am at the doorway of greater health consciousness. Wherever in my body that I'm giving myself any kind of pain, that's really a doorway to greater love, greater God consciousness. So first I see it as a doorway to greater God consciousness, my sore throat, right? Scratchy throat. And then I go do whatever I think I need to do in the world as a symbolic gesture to show that I'm willing to be healed, which is taking a throat lozenge. That is my symbolic gesture to show that I am willing to be healed. But first, I told myself the truth about it. And the truth about it is a scratchy throat is a doorway to greater God consciousness. See, that's how you put the truth into effect. You remember what you were told, and then you apply it to the situation you're going through in the world. That's how you get out of it. That's how you have the healing. So if you notice, I did not go into denial. I did not pretend that I did not have a scratchy throat. You did not hear me say, I have a scratchy throat, and that's just an illusion. It's easy to call an illusion when you don't have a scratchy throat. It's always easy for the people who aren't going through whatever you're going through to be very spiritual because they're not going through it themselves. So don't buy into thinking that they actually are enlightened because they're taking your problem very lightly. That's which is kind of funny. It's easy for you to be spiritual about what I'm going through. The real test, though, is if you're going to be spiritual about what you are going through. I know you can look at my throat from, oh, it's just an illusion, or it's just a doorway to greater God consciousness, which is great, which is the truth. But let me see you say that when you're upset, when you have a sore throat, because that's when you're getting it, when you say to yourself, it's a doorway to greater God consciousness when you have a scratchy throat. Okay. So, so the second paragraph said, follow your heart. Demola says, yes, brother, take that magic lozenge. Dana calls it a symbolic gesture. It's a doorway, and it's very smooth. Kathy says, baby, I hear you. We're all learning together. That's right. Symbolic gestures of love are everything, says Bree. Alita says, my pain in my shoulder, my foot, my back, all doorways to greater God consciousness. These are all comments. My upset is a doorway to greater God consciousness. A very powerful comment was just said. That comment is so damn true. Another comment shared. Jim says, remember always this truth which is always true, for only this truth is true. The point, and don't forget now, try to focus in on the point that the Way Master is making. What is the point that is making in that paragraph? Share your truth if for no other reason than to get past your fear. Not because you're trying to be right, not because you're trying to persuade anybody of anything. The other thing we heard is that you need to follow your heart. If you feel like something's been constantly calling you for years and years and years, you may want to realize that that's something you may need to do, that you may need to follow. That's why I resigned my job, because I had a calling to do this. And it was so powerful that I couldn't do anything else when I remembered what my purpose was for being incarnated in this body, because I believe that this earth is a school. This is where I'm here to achieve greater God consciousness, but it is not my home. It is not where I came from. So therefore, since I know I'm not in the ultimate reality of love, then that means all of the things that we are experiencing are opportunities to have a doorway to greater God consciousness. That's all it is, you know. My healing is the way to greater awareness to God consciousness. That is exactly right, Carla. That is what your healing is, and whatever the sickness is. It's a doorway to greater God consciousness. Point to remember. Share your truths, Kathy. Fear whispers to you to follow through it to love. Go and share your truth. 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 Go and share your truth for no other reason, not to persuade, not to be right, but just to do the sharing. Do the sharing so that you can get through the ring of fear. Do the sharing so you can get through the ring of fear. That is all. Follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart. I didn't say follow your head. Follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart. The next paragraph on page 330 says, now I know that the world has not taught you to live in such a way. So I want you to listen to what Yeshua is saying. I'm telling you all of this stuff, but I know it's opposite to what the world is teaching you. I know the world has not taught you to see everything that upsets you as a door to consciousness and greater God consciousness. Yeshua says, I know that the world hasn't told you to follow your heart no matter what, even if it sometimes seems impractical. I know that the world hasn't taught you that when you are fearful and you have fear cropping up, that you're at the doorway of greater love consciousness. I know the world hasn't taught you what I'm teaching you. I know the world hasn't taught you what I'm teaching you. But the world is the opposite of the truth of the kingdom. Do you know that the world is the opposite of truth? The world is the opposite of the truth. Everything that the world teaches you is the opposite of the truth. Everything that fear teaches you is the opposite of truth. What anger teaches you is the opposite of truth, but it's the doorway to greater God consciousness. Love all. That's 2 words. Love all. Love all. Love all. It did not say make everyone individually special and have a special relationship with everyone. Loving everyone is not having a special relationship with everyone. Love is not special. Love includes everyone, and love loves equally. I do not treat everyone equally. I don't feel the same way about everybody. I am at a doorway to greater God consciousness because of that. Why? Because I don't love everyone and everything, and I do not love everyone and everything equally. I do not look out for everyone else equally. I do not look out for everyone else as much as I look out for myself. I single out certain people for my attention more than others. I don't always see my upset as the doorway to greater God consciousness. So when it says love all, I know that I don't know what the hell this book is talking about. I do not love everyone equally. So therefore, I am not loving all. Now, do I feel guilty to share that with you? No. I'm going beyond the ring of fear, and I'm at the doorway of greater God consciousness because I was willing to admit where my fear and separation crops up. That doesn't mean I need anybody to fix me. I don't need anybody to correct me. I don't need anybody to tell me a lot of ways that I need to see it. I'm just sharing with you, exactly like Yeshua says, whatever I am feeling as a doorway to God so that I can get past my fear. When someone does that, that is not a cue for you to start to correct them or fix them with all of your divine wisdom that you're not applying to yourself. When someone is sharing and communicating what they fear, they are at the doorway to greater God consciousness. And you are supposed to see it that way. Now, so it doesn't matter why I don't love everybody equally. That is not important. What's important is for me to admit that I don't know how to love completely, unconditionally yet, so that I don't have to constantly have these doorways to greater God consciousness showing up as people who upset me, so that I can get to the point that I realize that's what they are, the doorway to greater God consciousness. So it says right here. Now, if you notice, I'm sticking directly to the topic. You don't hear me going off on a tangent. You don't hear me talking about everything other than what the way a master is talking about. So if you're tempted to do that, bring your consciousness in so that we can hear this and be aware of the doorway of consciousness together. And it says right here, become the one who serves all. So how do you love everyone? You become the one that serves all. So how do you serve me? How do you serve everyone? How do I love everyone? It says in the very next part of the sentence, by loving first yourself. Okay, so I don't know how to love all of you equally. I just don't. You know, I don't know how to love everybody equally. Some parts of myself, I just think are pains in the ass. And I just don't see them in a loving way. I just don't. Okay. The difference is after 40 years, I don't beat myself up about that. I just realize it's a doorway to a greater God consciousness, and I try to see if I can do it better. Okay. So what else did it just say? How do I get to the point that I can love everybody? Well, it says you do it by wanting to serve everybody. Okay. So I want to serve you. That's why I'm doing these presentations. That's why I teach, because I want to love all. Now, how do I love all? I serve all. How do I serve all? By loving myself when? First. I do not want any of you. I want to beg you. I want to implore you. Do not try to love me before you try to love yourself. Don't try to love me before you love yourself. Don't put me first. Don't put me first. Don't try to love me first. Don't try to love another person first. Don't try to love your child first. Don't try to love your partner first. Don't try to love other people first. Don't try to love other things first. The first step to really loving everybody is what? To love yourself when? First. 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 Now, doesn't that sound opposite to what the world teaches? Yeah, that's why it will work. That's why you know it'll work. We're already seeing the results of how the world teaches. Unless you are blind and totally in denial, you already see that the way the world teaches produces a lot of chaos and fear and pain and separation, broken into by periods in which it looks like they're gone. So we already know the result of thinking the way the world thinks, which is put everybody else first. Put everybody else first. Try to sacrifice yourself for everybody else. That is not true. That is not the way you go through the doorway. The way you go through the doorway to greater God consciousness is you practice loving yourself first. Now, what is the Way of Mastery's definition of love? What is one of the Way of Mastery's definition of love? One of the Way of Mastery's definition of love is freedom. 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 Freedom is of the mind. Freedom is of the mind and not of the body. We're not talking about freedom of the body. We're not talking about freedom of the body. Freedom has nothing to do with the body. Freedom is of the mind. Freedom is of your thinking. So therefore, loving all is freeing all. And that means you have to free yourself first. Free you first. Free you first. That's how you begin to love all. Notice that as I go through this with you, I'm going through it line by line, but I'm not analyzing it. I'm just, delivering the message over and over again so that, and presenting it in different ways to help us remember. If you care about other people, if you really care about other people the way you say you care about other people, then that means you are loving yourself when? First. Then the Way of Mastery says, learn to quiet the roar and the din of the world. Now, what is the heck is a din? Except in somebody's house with a flat screen TV. But it says, learn to quiet the roar and the din of the world, which is nothing more. What is the roar of the world? It's nothing more than your decision to place value on how the rest of the world is thinking. So when the Way of Mastery says, quiet the roar of the world, quiet the world's roar. The world is always trying to tell you what you should think. The world is always trying to tell you what you should believe. The world is always trying to tell you what you should think. The world is always trying to tell you what you are. The world is always trying to tell you what you are. And the Way of Mastery says that is the roar of the world. And what you must do is to stop placing value on how the rest of the world is thinking. Stop valuing how other people are thinking. Stop valuing what other people think of you. Stop valuing what other people think of you. Stop valuing what other people are thinking. Stop valuing what other people are thinking. Stop valuing what other people are thinking. Stop valuing what other people are thinking of you. Stop valuing what other people are thinking of you. The Way of Mastery says that you got to quiet your being concerned about what other people are thinking of you. See, I could not do this with any kind of joy or peace if I was overly concerned with what you think about me, how you feel about me. Would I love for you to feel about me in a loving way? Doggone right. Would I love for you to love me, but I don't want you to love me before you love you? See, I'm not going to get in an intimate relationship with someone who doesn't love themselves first. And one of the ways that I could tell that person was loving themselves first is they wouldn't put up with my crap. You see, if they're loving themselves first, then they would not put up with any kind of crap from me. They would just see it as their opportunity to go to greater God consciousness. And let me tell you, there's some past relationships that I'm sure the women could tell you I was a big doorway to greater God consciousness. And they were definitely big doorways to greater God consciousness for me. So the first thing I want anybody that's going to be in a relationship with me, I want them to love themselves first. I want them to love themselves first. If you don't love yourself first, I ain't going out with you. If I think you're putting me before you and you're not honoring what it is you think you need to do to follow your heart, Purdy ain't playing. Because I know you don't know how to love me. If you don't love yourself first, you can't love me. So the Way of Mastery is saying you have to make the decision to place no value on the the rest of what the world is thinking. So that paragraph says that, first of all, Yeshua says to us, I know this is opposite to the way you've been taught. So let's just get straight about that. This is not the way that you've been taught. The next thing that we were told, don't you think that we were told something that was awesome? When we were told that the world is the opposite of the truth. The world is the opposite of love. The world is the opposite of truth. Then it told us that you are going to love everybody, but you won't be able to love everybody until you love yourself. So give up that idea that you can be a miserable, unhappy person and you're going to love somebody. I think that the universe is doing everybody a great favor when I don't love myself and nobody's attracted to me, unless I'm ready to see them as a doorway to greater God consciousness, and they're willing to see me as a doorway to greater God consciousness. I'm glad that I'm not attracting people when I'm not a totally loving person. I think that's great for everybody, because I need to love myself first before I join with somebody else, or I need to join with somebody else who also wants to love themselves first so that we can get together to love ourselves first. So not to put the other person first, but to put yourself first so that you can love them, so that you can have something to give them. You can't give me what you don't have. If you don't have love, you can't give me any love that you don't have. You can't give me any happiness you don't have. You can't share any love with me that you don't have. So don't forget, there's no such thing as somebody really being able to love you who don't love themselves. So if you're with someone and they're constantly criticizing and condemning themselves, and they're having a lot of fear come up within themselves, then they're at the doorway of greater God consciousness, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you got to stick around. I'm glad I was able to be your doorway. I hope this will trigger you to want to love yourself more, and I'm out of here. That's okay too. That's totally innocent. We just need to know what it is. It's the doorway to greater God consciousness. That's what's going on. Then we heard in paragraph 3 that you got to learn to quiet the roar of the world, which is nothing more than your decision. Whose decision? Your decision to place greater value on what the rest of the world is thinking. So Yeshua says, stop worrying about what the world thinks of you. Stop worrying about what the world, because we know the world thinks opposite to what we are talking about. We know the world is absolutely the opposite of what we're talking about. And so Renew says, I'm here to help the Lord create heaven. Yes, but the point that's being made, Renew, is what? That the world is the opposite of truth, that you need to love everybody, and you need to become somebody that serves everybody, and you serve everybody by loving yourself first and not placing a lot of value on what other people think. Like Diana saying, loving myself first. Loving myself first. A relationship doesn't complete you. A relationship doesn't complete you. But now you know what you're in a relationship for. You're in a relationship to learn how to love yourself first so that you'll have love to give. And you are there to help them love themselves first so that they'll have love to give. So if you were in a conscious relationship, you would be just as invested in that other person making themselves happy and putting themselves first as you would be in making yourself happy by putting yourself first. And you wouldn't see them as being separate. You wouldn't see them as being selfish. You would see them as by loving themselves before they love you. You wouldn't call them selfish. You would want them to do that so that they could have love to share with you, because they don't have any love to share with you if they don't love themselves. And you know they don't love themselves if they're constantly condemning themselves and others. And you also know that's a doorway to greater God consciousness. That's called remembering what the way of mastery is teaching. That's how you learn the way of mastery. Notice that what I'm doing is sharing what the way of mastery is saying, repeating what the way of mastery is saying, applying it in a practical way so that it's just not something abstract and airy-fairy. This is what we're supposed to do with the truth. Again, it's not about trying to expound on how much I know. it's about, what is it that Yeshua said? Well, Yeshua said that whenever my fear is cropping up, that's a doorway to greater love consciousness. What did Yeshua say? He says that whenever I'm afraid to share something with somebody, then that's also a doorway to greater God consciousness. What else did Yeshua say? Yeshua said, I need to go and share my truth, but I need to share it not because I'm trying to persuade anybody and not because I'm trying to be right. I should be communicating because I want to get through my fear. So what else did Yeshua say? Yeshua, in the Way of Master, says that you need to follow your heart, that the thing that's really calling you, and it's been calling you for years and years and years, that's probably your calling, and you need to follow your heart. What else did Yeshua say to me? Yeshua told me that I need to remember that the world doesn't believe what I'm studying. Yeshua also told me that the world is the opposite of truth, so I need to remember that the world is the opposite of truth. What else do I need to remember? I need to remember that he said I needed to love everybody, and the way that I love everybody is to serve everybody. But in order for me to serve everybody, I start with loving myself first. I need to love myself first. And what was the last thing that Yeshua told me? The last thing that Yeshua told me was I need to let go of being overly concerned about what the world thinks and what the world thinks of me. Did you just see what I just did? What I just did was repeated what Yeshua told me back to myself so that I could apply it to whatever it is I'm going through. Notice I didn't analyze any of that. I didn't try to inject all of my divine wisdom. What I did was I wanted to remember what I was told. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we do. Follow the heart. Okay. All right. So let's hear that paragraph. Let's see what time it is. Okay, here we go. So let's let the music let it in. Here we go. Now I know that the world has not taught me to live in such a way. But the world is the opposite of truth, don't you know? But the world is the opposite of truth. The world is the opposite of the truth of the kingdom. Don't you know? Of the kingdom. Don't you know? The world is the opposite of the truth of the kingdom. Don't you know? Don't you know? Don't you know? Love all. Love all. Love all. Love all. Become the one that serves 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 all. By loving first yourself. First, love yourself. First, love yourself. First, love yourself. Learn to quiet. Learn to quiet the roar of the world. Learn to quiet the roar of the world. Learn to. What is the roar? What is the roar of the world? What is the roar of the world? The roar of the world, the roar of the world is nothing more than your decision to place value. Your decision to place value on how the rest of the world is thinking. Stop placing value. Stop placing value. Stop placing value on what? On how the rest of the world is thinking. Stop placing value on how the rest of the world is thinking. Stop placing value on how the rest of the world is thinking. Yes. So, mighty companion, I want you to take a deep breath right now. because if we just remember this much, just, just this much of what we've heard, it would completely transform our lives. So take a breath. So it has been great sharing this much with you in this presentation. It is my honor to be a minister and a messenger for you. And as a full-time messenger, thank you for sharing with me. And if you'd like to make a financial expression of appreciation, you can go to my website at www.earlpurdy.com, Purody. I appreciate that as a full-time teacher in the world. And you can also use Venmo. Those of you who would like to share that way, you can use Venmo and just use my email address, which is earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com. I'm available to work with you one-on-one. It's called a clarity session. And I also use my knowledge of astrology and numerology, which is awesome. So to help you get past any blocks, there is a financial investment for doing that. I make all my classes free, available at no charge, but that ain't true about my personal sessions. They require a personal investment, and that's all good. All right. Also, I want you to know that I am doing another Facebook Live broadcast at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on Thursdays called A Hardcore Course in Miracles. And it's at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page on Facebook, and also on Sundays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page on Facebook. I do a Course in Miracles class before a live audience. There are hundreds of videos of my classes available on YouTube and on my website. I'm here to serve. I'm here to learn how to love myself first, so I can love you. And then on Tuesdays, we have the Way of Mastery. I thank you for loving my teaching, Carla. Thank you, all of you. You all send me so much love, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I want to truly love you, and I know I will not truly love you before I truly love myself. It ain't going to happen. And so I'm going to love myself first. And I'm going to encourage you to love yourself first. Wouldn't that be great to be in a relationship with someone who would say, no, don't you put me first. Don't you put me first. I want you to love yourself first. I want you to free yourself first, darling. I want you to do what's going to make you happy. I want you to do what's going to make you happy. And if what I just presented to you would not be something you would make yourself happy doing, because I love you and I want you to love yourself first, it's perfectly okay if you don't want to go out with me. It's perfectly okay if you don't want to do this with me. It's perfectly okay if you don't want to do that with me, because I want you to love yourself first. Because I know when you truly love yourself and feel good about yourself, then that's going to be some love and some goodness you can share with me. And in the meantime, when we have an argument or when we have an upset, we're going to say to each other, you know what? We just opened a door to greater God consciousness. That argument we just got through having, that was a door. That was a doorway to greater love consciousness. And we really got down on that. See, I know how a consciously evolving person would speak now because of the Way of Mastery in the Course in Miracles. I've studied the Course in Miracles. I've studied this, right? So it's telling me how a loving mind operates and how a mind that operates that's just a door to greater God consciousness, or a mind that doesn't know what love is. That is really what's happening right now. So I'm going to do a quick review before we allow ourselves to really actualize this. You all are so cool. Here we go. So at this point, I'd like for you to just let yourself feel this and hear this. You ready? You ready? Ready? Let's ride it. Let's ride it. Boom, boom, doom, 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 doom. I want you to remember that where you have fear cropping up, that is a doorway to greater love consciousness. If you're PO'd about something right now, it's a doorway to greater God consciousness. If you are afraid of something right now, it's a doorway to greater God consciousness. If you have a big conflict in your life right now, it's a doorway to greater God consciousness. If you have a body issue or sickness, it is a doorway to greater God consciousness. If you have a lack perception or a perception of a lack of money, it is a doorway to greater God consciousness. That's how you are supposed to see it. If there's something that you are afraid to communicate to someone, if there's something that you are afraid to communicate to someone, it is a doorway to greater love consciousness. Go and share your truth. Go and share your truth, but don't share your truth because you're trying to be right. Don't share your truth because you're trying to convert or persuade someone. You want to share your truth so you can get past your fear. You want to share your truth so that you can get past your blocks. And that's all. I want to tell you now, let me get down funky, yeah. Let me tell you now, If you feel your heart is constantly calling you and you feel a need to follow a particular way that's calling you, follow your heart, follow your heart. Now I know that the world doesn't teach you what we've learned tonight. I know the world doesn't teach you what we've been taught tonight. The world thinks differently from the way that we are learning. So just accept that. The world is the opposite of the truth. The world is the opposite of the truth. You're just here to love all. You're here to love all. You're here to love all. You're here to love all. How do you love all? Well, you have to serve others. How do you serve others? By loving yourself first is how you serve others. Loving yourself first is how you begin to serve others. So don't feel guilty about that. Love yourself first. You've got to learn to quiet the world's voice. Don't be concerned about what other people think when you know that you're following your heart and you are doing it in a peaceful, non-violent way. Don't need anybody else's approval. Don't care about what anybody else thinks. Love yourself first and you will be serving all. I don't know what love is completely, so I'm going to have some doorways show up. If I'm not giving love to myself the way I should yet, then I'm going to have upset and fear and anger and lack come up from time to time. And how am I supposed to see it? How are you supposed to see it? You should come home in the evening when you've had a challenging day and said, I had a whole lot of revolving doors today. I was dealing with a lot of doors to greater God consciousness today. That's what's been happening. So listen to this over and over and over and over again, at least 3 times. Mighty companions, I truly love you. And my real self, beyond my ego, truly loves you. And I'm bringing in my personality self so that it can totally love you by loving myself first, so that I'll have love to give to you. So I'd like you to love yourself first, okay? I'd like for you to love yourself first. And you are my beloved friend. Don't put me before you. Don't put me before. If you think of me as a separate being from you, then don't put me before you. Love yourself first, and I know you'll be able to love me. I know you will be able to see me as one with you. I know that you'll be able to see me as you. but not before you free yourself first. Not before you love yourself first. Mighty companions, all of you, you're such a blessing. May this course be with you. See you next time. Share this video. Thank you in advance for any sharing that you do with me as a financial expression of appreciation. You are a blessing in my life so much. Mwah. Awesome, awesome.